It's Big E Shoot-Around from New York City, everybody. John Fanta with you from the Big Apple, breaking down all the latest storylines across Big East men's basketball. Coming up on today's show, we've got a special feature on the St. John's Red Storm, who at 8-1 will open up conference play. That's right, league play is here. And it starts off with an opener between the Johnnies and the DePaul Blue Demons at 6:30 Eastern Time on FS1. More on that to come. But we'll have that feature on the Red Storm. The mailbox is open. Let's get to it with the headlines. Number one, the Connecticut Huskies are a top 5 team in the country. UConn, one of just 12 unbeatens left in college basketball, and the Huskies have won all their games by double digits. An amazing start to the season by this Huskies team with their depth, with the fact that Adama Sanogo could take a breather, and Donovan Clingan, the Bristol Central product, could come in off the bench and keep the Huskies rolling. That Alex Caravan, a freshman as well, that he could step up for this team. And then in the backcourt, while R.J. Cole was so special last year, now the Huskies have different options. And that was on display in Thursday night's win over Oklahoma State when Jordan Hawkins had a career night. When Hawkins is going, you combine his explosiveness offensively with their defense and rebounding. We know what Hassan Diarra, Tristan Newton, Naheem Aline have been able to add. And folks, I think here at this desk, I will say it right now to all of you, that if I would have to pick a player in the Big East Conference to start a team with, I'm picking Andre Jackson. He does every single little thing in a game. His activity is invaluable. So for the Connecticut Huskies to be 9-0 on the season, this is why they came back to the Big East. It's all happening. Dan Hurley said a couple years ago it's coming. It is very much here, folks, and the Huskies will look to stay unbeaten with a tall task at Florida, 9 Eastern Time tonight, ESPN 2. It'll be interesting to see how the Huskies and Gators go at it, and how Kyle Lofton, a St. Bonaventure transfer who UConn met last year, how he leads the Gators backcourt, and what Colin Castleton and company for the Gators can do against Adama Sanogo. I would say UConn has a bit of an advantage in this matchup, but it's their first true road game. That's always tough. Headline number 2, Xavier made a statement over the weekend, and the Musketeers broke through for a quality non-conference win, beating West Virginia, who, if you saw the net rankings come out on Monday, West Virginia was the highest-rated Big 12 team. That's a good resume victory for the Xavier Musketeers. Sean Miller's group was led by Sule Boom, who has been one of the best transfers, not just in the conference, but across America. 24 points, 7 assists. He stepped up for his team, and Jack Nungy had 17 and 14. But we know that Xavier can score the ball. The difference for the Musketeers on Saturday was their defense. They finished the game on a 14-4 run. They defended. They played more like a Sean Miller team. The Cintas Center felt like the Cintas Center again, and Xavier got a win they needed. Can they keep the momentum rolling? That question gets answered Saturday afternoon, 3 Eastern Time, ESPN 2, for the Crosstown Chili, Skyline Chili, Crosstown Shootout. It is a rivalry that's in a class of its own. Xavier Cincinnati Saturday afternoon. Pull up a chair and watch that game. You will not be disappointed. Headline number 3, Big East play is here. And while this conference opener between St. John's and DePaul tonight will be the league opener with then a significant gap of sorts over a week before our next conference game, it's an interesting opportunity for these two teams tonight in Queens, because for St. John's, the Red Storm are coming off of a loss at Iowa State, a loss in which the Johnnies could never really find their offense at a difficult place to play, Hilton Coliseum. Here's the figure that must be fixed for St. John's to bounce back against DePaul: 6 assists to 20 turnovers. It's on Pasha Alexander and Andre Curbelo to find a rhythm. It's on Montez Mathis to make shots as well, and it's on David Jones to do so too. And this is a very interesting game in Queens because it is the David Jones reunion night. DePaul will face Jones. Jones going up against his former program. Folks, the art of intra-conference transfers means there's some added intensity when they end up meeting their former team. And that will be the case here tonight. when these two teams square off. DePaul coming off a comeback win over Loyola Chicago at the Ramblers' house. And for the Blue Demons, that's nice momentum. They defended in the second half of that game. They found a way to win. And right now, Javen Johnson, the 23-year-old, is playing lights-out basketball. Folks, this past week, Big East Player of the Week, 56 combined points. He was fantastic for the Blue Demons. He's a bucket, and he's 23. He spent a lot of time on the injury shelf last year, so he went under the radar. But Tony Stubblefield says this: he's a grown man. He and Umoja Gibson can really score for the Blue Demons. Now, if they can defend, that's the key. No Yorane in this game, and the USF transfer Caleb Murphy, who Tony Stubblefield pegged as his potential best player, he's a game-time decision for the Blue Demons against the Johnnies. Again, 6:30 Eastern Time, FS1. It is the conference opener. Either DePaul or St. John's will be in first place at the end of this night. Let's talk a little bit more about the 8-1 Red Storm. So, who is this St. John's team? And what are they about? We sat down with the Johnnies in Queens.
Am I okay right now? Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 3. All right. I think when you look at our team, we bring back 8 guys that are coming back that played meaningful minutes. You know, you start with a guy like Posh, Dylan, even a guy like Joel Soriano. It was his first year. But we saw what he brings to the table going down the stretch. Now you got 2 high-level transfers, and Andre and Davy Jones. And of course, I think the freshman that we got will help us as well. So it's a team that fit with the players that I love to play with, the style we got a chance to play with, and I think the depth.
When you think about the depth, when you think about the pieces, you know, how much do you speak with your team / how much do you look at yourself and your staff and say, now it's time to take some of these building blocks and turn them into what can be at St. John's in money time, in money?
It's our time. I think it's our time. And I think even with what is taking place this year, you know, I thought, you know, Mike Craig, our AD, allowing us to do the foreign tour trip, getting familiar with one another, building camaraderie. Now let's get into the season, and you know, every year I'm trying to win a national championship. I'm trying to win a championship. To me, the given, you're gonna be in the tournament. That's the given. Now, let's take care of the things we can control. That's why I'm a one day at a time kind of guy, one game at a time kind of guy. I've always been that way, and I think if we do what we're supposed to do, we're gonna be what we're supposed to be. Let's take care of home. Let's go out and steal games on the road. I think it's our time.
We thank the Johnnies for taking some time with us in Queens as we pull out the cup of coffee and we open up the Big East Hoops mailbox. We get plenty of questions every week. We can only take a few. So here they are. At D Duclos89. Dan Duclos. Thanks for your question, Dan. He asks us, biggest surprise so far? Well, the answer is quite simple. The team that was picked to finish 9th in the Big East preseason poll. It's the Marquette Golden Eagles. Has there been any result in the Big East, perhaps nationally this season, that raised your eyebrows more, America, than the Golden Eagles beating the Baylor Bears by 26 in Milwaukee? That was wild. And it was wild because of the way that they did it. They came out and punched Baylor in the mouth. And for those of you who set off that game, well, maybe Baylor's not as good as we thought. Maybe Baylor's not going to be a great team. They then beat Gonzaga on a neutral floor 3 nights later. That only helps Marquette. Marquette now has a win with unlimited mileage. They've got a player in Cam Jones who is a bucket. Jones went for 26 points in Saturday's game against Wisconsin, a classic, might I add, in Milwaukee, an overtime game between the Badgers and Golden Eagles that Chucky Hepburn and the Badgers took. But no shame for Marquette. They had a really good week. Now can they stack weeks together like they did last year to make the NCAA tournament? A big one comes Sunday afternoon on ESPN2 when Marquette meets an old foe in the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. That is going to be a big one in South Bend. And Mike Bray's got a team with J.J. Starling and company that could be dangerous in the ACC. So that's a great resume opportunity for both. It's the art of a home-and-home series, which both these programs have agreed to, and it just feels right that Marquette and Notre Dame are meeting on the hardwood again. Thank you, Dan, for your question. Marquette is the biggest surprise. The Xavier professor at Prof. X B-Ball, quite fittingly, asks us, it really seems like the league is full of fantastic bigs this year. He's right. Adama Sanogo, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Joel Soriano, Manny Bates. Folks, don't come in Manny Bates' way. Do not get in his way. He'll take you down at Butler. But Xavier professor says, who is in the race for top floor general? Good question, Xavier professor. And I know why you asked. Because Sule Boom would have to be a candidate. He's been great for the Musketeers. You think about what he has been able to do for them this season, 36 assists to just 21 turnovers. But I still go out to Omaha when I talk about floor generals, and I go with Creighton, because when you think about Ryan Nembhard this season, 50 assists to 13 turnovers. That's crazy. That's crazy. And even though Creighton has lost 3 in a row, the 3 losses came to Arizona in the Maui Invitational Championship game by 2. At Texas, do you know how many teams would be a favorite at the Moody Center in Austin right now? 0. And then a home game against Nebraska. Tough loss. The Blue Jays were not themselves. They have not shot the 3 ball well in the last 2 games. In fact, in the last 2 games, they're 14 for 67 from 3. They got to be better from beyond the arc. They need Arthur Kaluma as well to be better. But I think that Ryan Nembhard is as good of a floor general as you're going to find. 50 assists to 13 turnovers. He manages the game. He makes plays for others. He's very unselfish. So I would look at Nembhard. I would look at Sule Boom. I think Tyler Kolek has that in him at Marquette. I think he's another guy that you should look out for. And then if St. John's is going to be successful, they need Andre Curbelo. And they need Posh Alexander to engineer the offense and make smart plays. St. John's must be better in the half court, especially against DePaul tonight. It's a game in Queens that if the Red Storm are going to go dancing for the first time in the Mike Anderson era, St. John's has actually struggled with DePaul and Queens. A couple of years ago, they lost at home. Last year it was very close, and Julian Champagny won them the game. There's something about that matchup. It's an important one for St. John's here tonight. As we keep the mailbox open and we take your third question. Third question is, let's see, Scott U. At Scott U, followed by a bunch of random numbers and an account that Twitter probably said, here you go, Scott, here's your username. He really wanted to hop on. Scott asks, Cam Whitmore finally hit the floor for Nova, and Justin Moore hopefully coming soon. Do my Wildcats have enough to get back on top? All right, Scott. So here's the deal. I don't think that Villanova is the top team in the Big East, and I don't even think with Cam Whitmore and Justin Moore that they're going to get back on top. However, to all of you who are maybe saying that Villanova doesn't have a pulse or they're not the same or writing them off, folks, have you not learned about what is sitting right over here? That national championship trophy. Villanova has a pair of them in the last 6 years, and the Wildcats have a pedigree. And Justin Moore was supposed to be at the forefront of that. Cam Whitmore was supposed to be at the forefront of that. And Cam Whitmore made a difference in Saturday's win over Oklahoma. Yeah, he might have been in single digits, but he just made an instant impact. Teams have to account for him defensively. They've got to try to guard him, but you got to try to guard the other Wildcats on the floor as well, and it only helps Caleb Daniels. Mark Armstrong, the freshman, the Big East Freshman of the Week, he came up big for the Wildcats. My point, this team struggled early. And yes, losing to Portland in Oregon at the PK85, tough loss. But I think that this team's going to come on, and they've built a reputation. Don't tell me the committee doesn't think about those things. Villanova's going to have to do some damage against this combination, UConn, Creighton, and Xavier. They're going to have to do some resume building in conference play. If they can do that and they can get double-digit Big East wins, they could have a case, but they got to take care of business with their upcoming schedule. And let's think about that here coming up. Now they're 3-5. Tonight, taking on Penn. Jay Wright is on the call for that game. CBS Sports Network at 7 Eastern Time. Then they take on Boston College Saturday evening on Fox. You got to beat BC at the Prudential Center. They're at St. Joe's December 17th. They're home to St. John's December 21st. Villanova's got to stack things together. They could really use the next 4 games because then off that, they're at UConn on Wednesday night, December 28th, and that is going to be a really difficult game to get if you're those Wildcats. So there you go. That's a good question from you, Scott. I don't think about on top. I think about making the tournament, and once you make the tournament, if Moore's healthy, we'll see what his timeline is. I think we could expect him back sometime January, February. We'll see. Coming off that Achilles injury. Achilles injuries can be funny because they're so tough to come back from. So it'll be interesting to see just exactly what Moore does in his return and whenever that ends up being. All right. Last question comes from @JumpinJ402. @JumpinJ402 asks, are we frauds? I'm going to need to take a sip. The answer is no. The answer is don't overreact. The answer is take a breath. The answer is you lost to the team in red, so you're angry. Take a step back. Understand the win that you had over Arkansas and Maui. Understand that you've got a team that is tough and that defends and that's more willing to defend than perhaps other Creighton teams. Jumpin' Jay, stop leaping, take a seat because your team's going to be all right. Now, Creighton's got some important games coming up. There's no question about it. They're going to take on an Arizona State team that has been improved this season. And remember, they beat Creighton a year ago. So that was a loss that set sour in the Jays' mouths. They'll also take on BYU out in Vegas. Creighton's going to have some opportunities here to get back on track. They got to get higher percentage shots, and they need Art Kaluma to be able to break out. They need Baylor Shireman to be himself, and they need Ryan Kalkbrenner to punch back and be one of the best big men in the country. I think Creighton's going to be fine. I would not overreact, and sometimes it's a good thing when you lose. This has been an incredibly tough schedule for Greg McDermott's Jays. They'll be better because of it in the long run. Are you a fraud, Jumpin' Jay? The only thing that would make you a fraud is if you start to wear red colors in Omaha and not blue. Don't jump off the bandwagon right now. You're in for a good season. Stay the course. And that is the only time I will ever come off as any sort of a psychologist. That does it for us here on Big East Shoot Around. Hey, full Wednesday night of games. Let's give you the rundown here ahead tonight. DePaul St. John's coming up on your TV over on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. Georgetown will meet Siena over on FS2 at 6:30. Then at 7, it's Villanova hosting Penn. Again, Jay Wright's on the broadcast there. Stop over at CBS Sports Network for some Big 5 action. At 8:30 Eastern Time, it's Providence hosting the Manhattan Jaspers. Friars coming off of a win over Rhode Island. So think about this. I think Ed Cooley's team has a chance to get better and better as the season goes on. Bryce Hopkins is big time, folks. 14 points, 15 rebounds. And shout out to our guy, Kyron Cartwright. He was just named special assistant to the Friars staff. He's been a member of our cast and crew, so congratulations to you, Kyron. Want to give you a shout out as well. Seton Hall will take on Lincoln at 8:30 over on FS2 from Walsh Gym. And then to round things out, folks, Huskies, Gators, UConn, Florida. Finally, that home and home is going to be completed down in Gainesville at 9 o'clock on ESPN2. And then, folks, this weekend, Georgetown, Syracuse, Xavier, Cincinnati, Villanova, Boston College, Creighton, BYU after dark on Saturday evening. It's a full slate of Big East hoops, and we got you covered over at Big East MBB. I'm John Fanta. We say so long for now from the greatest city in the world.